WorkWithPlus provides a unique development environment designed to make the development team's work easier and provide 100% flexibility. Let's look at it in more detail. We are going to open our person transaction, which in the previous video we have already applied to WorkWithPlus. We'll go to the Transactions folder. Let's go directly to the transaction person. Here, our person transaction has been opened, and we need to go to the Patterns tab. Here we see that the WorkWithPlus IDE has 5 fundamental parts. Let's start with the Hierarchical declaration. This is a tree that represents the layout of the screen. From there, we can make the changes we need. For example, placing different controls and elements. For example, in this layout, we can see that the buttons are located at the bottom of the screen. And if we want to add them to the top, we just have to drag and drop the action group, and we will see the changes instantly. We are going to make the change that we mentioned, which is to grab the action group and bring it to the top of the screen. We see it here, and we can see also directly in the preview where the change has been made. We can drag it by selecting it and moving it up, or if not, we can cut it and paste it as you prefer. The second fundamental part of the IDE is the real-time preview. Here, we will see what our application will look like at runtime without having to compile and run it. We can see our application in different sizes, since everything that WorkWithPlus generates is responsive. Here in the preview size section, we can see the different sizes that WorkWithPlus offers. As we saw just now, if I move the buttons, we can see it immediately in the preview. This allows me to prototype screens very quickly. Additionally, in the preview, we have shortcuts to make different changes to the design. For example, adjusting a column of a grid, changing colors. We can apply these features very quickly. We will show you how to center a column of the grid and change the color. We click on it. And as we can see here, this panel will open. We click on this brush, and here we have the different types of fonts. But in this case, we will only center it here, and we will position ourselves at the top again. We put the brush and change the color to red, for instance, as in this case. Here in the Properties, in Column class, we will see the changes that we have done. The third fundamental part are the tabs that represent the objects that WorkWithPlus creates for the different instances. In the case of the person transaction, we have the different tabs that are Transaction, the Default List, and the View. Here we are going to see the Transaction tab. We can see the one on the list, and at the View. The fourth part that makes up the WorkWithPlus IDE are the properties. Using the properties, we can very easily apply various features. For example, if we want the name field to be required, this is what we need to do. We must modify it in the properties and leave the isRequired property set to true. When you do this and save it, WorkWithPlus will add the code necessary to implement this feature. We will show you how we do it. In this case, we must go to the Transaction tab. We select the attribute that we want to place as required, and from here, from the properties, we look for the isRequired property. Here it is set to false, as we can see. But when we set it to true, and we see that it turns red, we can see that next to the attribute, the name of the attribute, there is an asterisk, which tell us that it is correctly set as required. Now we will save it and look at what the output tells us. We need to always keep in mind that when we make any changes here, we need to pay attention to having the output set to see everything that WorkWithPlus applies. Next, we have arrived to the fifth part of the WorkWithPlus IDE, which is the Powered Code Editor. With WorkWithPlus, we will be able to make configurations from the hierarchical declaration, the preview, or the properties. But also, on some occasions, we will have to add our own logic by adding code to the events. We have simplified this process. If, for example, we go to the object created by the listing, I am referring to the one that generates the listing, which is called Person Work With. When we open it, we can see that there is a special tab called Event Without WorkWithPlus Code. By clicking on it, which we can see as shown right here, we are going to see the user code only, and also where we have some features that WorkWithPlus adds to facilitate the creation of variables, code extension for subroutines, among others. As we have seen, this IDE helps the development team to work faster and more productively. In the next video, we'll finally run our application. We invite you to subscribe to our channels so that you are always up to date of our upcoming videos. See you there!